Hello, and welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings and get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of these stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village. And if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Guilbault Girls. Today we have Kristen Perso, founder of Cherry Blossom Vacations, which is a nonprofit whose mission is to give no-cost vacation stays to adoptive, foster, and special needs families. Kristen and her husband have 4 children, 2 who were adopted and have special needs. Cherry Blossom Vacations was started out of a desire to help other families like theirs to be able to travel and vacation more often and with less stress and more fun. So welcome, Kristen. Thanks so much for being on tonight. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I must tell you how near and dear to my heart this is, because I'm a treatment foster care recruiter for the ARC Northern Chesapeake region. So when I saw this, I'm like, oh my gosh, because I just thought of so many of our foster parents, like how great is this? Because it's just just everything about it I love. So first and foremost, thank you for doing what you do for these children in need. So before we go into talking about Cherry Blossom Vacations, can you share a little bit about your family? How old are your kids, your experience of adopting 2 children and what their needs look like?
Sure. So I am married. My husband's name is Tom, and we've been married 18 years. And so we have 4 kids. Our oldest 2 are biological girls. We have Ella, who's 15, and Leah is 12, soon to be 13. And then our next 2 are both our kids who we adopted. So we have Samson, who is 11, and Aiden, who is 8. So Samson was adopted from Uganda in Africa, and we have had him home with us coming up to 9 years. Yep, 9 years, actually in a couple of days. And then Aiden has been with us for 6 years. So when we decided to have a family, we had bio kids, just like kind of people do. And I had sort of always been, I guess I'd always had sort of a special place for adoption, just because I had babysat for some families who had adopted, and my husband was open to it. So we sort of just said, okay, well, let's learn about it. And we weren't really sure which type of adoption we wanted to do. We were pretty certain we didn't want to do foster care just because our girls were little at the time. So that left us with domestic infant adoption and international adoption. And for a variety of reasons, we ended up on the path of international adoption, and kind of soon found ourselves in Africa doing an adoption, much to our surprise. And then a few years later, we decided to adopt again. And then we would have liked to have adopted from Africa again, but international programs change. They open and they close randomly at the will of different governments of different countries. So China happened to be open at the time. So Aiden is adopted from China. So then a few years later, we found ourselves in China getting a little boy. So yeah, pretty crazy. Sometimes it still surprises me to think that I've been to Africa and Asia, and I have kids that are from different continents. And yeah.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. And what kind of needs do they have? What kind of special needs?
Yeah, so Samson was born with club feet. And so that was new to us. When we started his adoption, we weren't necessarily looking for a child with special needs, but he was the one that was offered to us. And so we kind of just learned about club feet and said, okay, this is something we can tackle. And then when we decided to adopt again, we decided that, we already know orthopedic needs. So that makes sense to kind of go that route again. Aiden has a disability called arthrogryposis, which is a joint disability. It affects your joints and your mobility with your joints. And so, much like Samson has club feet, Aiden has club feet, but he also has joint issues with his pretty much everywhere from head to toe, actually. So he's much more affected. Samson, you wouldn't really even know that he has a disability, to be honest. Aiden is clear as day because he uses the power wheelchair, and definitely does things differently. He has limited arm movement, difficulty standing on his own, and just does things differently. But yeah, so those were sort of, again, kind of the same thing of like, we were surprised to find ourselves in Africa and China. And some days I'm like, wow, look at these kids that I have. And I'm thankful for them. Still a surprise some days, but definitely thankful to have the kids that I have.
And do you both work full time too?
My husband does. I do not. I had thought I was going to be a working mom, but then when our oldest daughter was born, we couldn't really find daycare that we really liked. And I was like, I have this little baby girl and I didn't really want to leave her with anyone. So I decided to become a stay-at-home mom, and I have never gone back to work. And now I'm super thankful that I don't have to go to work.
Absolutely, because you're able to be there to take them to all of their things.
Yep.
And that's how it was when I had my kids. I was so grateful because when I had my son, I had him at 28 weeks. I actually, where I worked, they were amazing because JD was in the NICU for just under 2 months. So I basically would go in during like I would go into work and leave, go to there for like the lunch, around lunchtime, and then come home before it was time for rush hour. And then my husband would go to work all day, and then he would go there for like the nighttime feeding and stay until late and then come back. Cause it was probably like an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on traffic one way.
Yeah.
So, and then when I got back, I took my maternity leave, and then my mother actually took a 6-month family leave act or whatever, and was able to stay with him. And that was horrible going back. Yeah. And then I ended up leaving. Then I started waitressing at night just so I could be home with him during the days. But I was grateful because when we moved to back to Delaware, Maryland area, I was able to stay home, and then I had Faith, and then it was good because, she had cerebral palsy, and we were in, for PT, OT, all of that forever, 3 times a week. So it was, and, but now moving ahead, she's 18 and I now have help and I have respite. And we just got approved for personal supports for her. So, and now I'm actually able to work full time, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like getting that,
you're cycling back through.
Exactly. So I see you founded Cherry Blossom Vacation in 2021. Can you share with us a little bit more about your mission and some of the core values and what really ultimately led you or inspired you to start the nonprofit?
So we originally are from Michigan. My husband and I were born and raised there. Thought we would always live in Michigan. And then when we adopted Aiden, we struggled to find doctors that could care for him the way that we wanted to. And so we started looking other places and ultimately found AI DuPont in Delaware. Who in the world would have ever thought you'd find something like that in Delaware? But we did, and we were really thankful for the doctors that we found. And so we spent about a little over a year traveling back and forth for his doctor's appointments, and did a surgery where my oldest daughter came with me, and we flew and did surgery and went home in casts and surprised the TSA people because he had a cast on his arm and he had 2 casts on his legs, and they were like, I don't know what to do with you. I've not seen people come through the security line like this. So we did that for a bit of time. And so we kind of experienced that of the life of like, we need to travel for medical care. And we were traveling. It was a 10-hour drive to go from Michigan to Delaware. So we would fly occasionally, we would drive most of the time. And that was really that was our vacation time. It was like, okay, we need to go back for an appointment, and we would try to find fun things to do and sort of just make the best out of it. And then eventually we did end up finally deciding, okay, if we can move, we need to move. And that's kind of what led us to be living over here in Pennsylvania.
But do you have any family here with you guys, or
we did not?
Okay.
No, we do not.
Or interrupt you, but that's a lot coming to
Yeah.
me with the kids and no other help around. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It was a lot. It was definitely something that like we felt like as a family of faith, like we felt like it was something that God kind of put in front of us. And we were like, okay, too many things had come together for us to go, okay, like, I don't think that we should do that. I mean, nobody wants to just kind of up and move when they don't know people, but we felt like so many things had come together. So that's kind of how we ended up in Pennsylvania. But in our drives back and forth, I remember my husband and I talking, and we're like, gosh, like, this is kind of hard, and it's our vacation, and it's like not very fun for other kids. And at the time, we had some family who had a farmhouse for sale in the Shenandoah Mountains, and we were like, gosh, that house is so cool. And wouldn't it be cool if like could turn it into a vacation house and use it for families like ours, and they wouldn't have to pay? And just one of those drives on the very boring Ohio Turnpike when you have nothing else to talk about, and you're just like, let's just come up with some crazy idea. So that's just sort of how the whole thing started, was just a random idea. And then as we, over the years, between living in Michigan and between living on the East Coast, have met more and more adoptive families, special needs families, foster families, just in our circle of friends, we've seen a lot of families don't get to vacation. And it's not just vacation, it's other stuff that goes by the wayside when you are doing medical appointments, or you've spent a lot on adoption fees or foster care stuff or therapy. I mean, there's a long list for anybody who is in that category of families. Like, you know what I'm talking about. And some people have the finances to continue doing the fun stuff, and other people don't. And we just kept meeting more and more families who are like, yeah, we don't travel. Yeah, we don't go places as a family very much because this kid's needs don't allow us to go out to dinner all together, or just whatever, like just the fun extra stuff that it's like you're trying to make memories with your kids, but it just doesn't always happen. And I was fortunate as a child to be able to travel a lot. My parents really made that a priority for us. And so I grew up loving to travel, and I wanted my own kids to experience that. And we've been able to as a family, but I just felt like that's something really important for families, that, a lot of people will help with the adoption journey, or when a child is either brought into a family or born into a family with special needs, you have a lot of people rallying around you. And then as time goes on, sometimes you're there at therapy appointments by yourself, and you're like, it's kind of a lonely journey. And we just felt like our family, this was one way that we could sort of give back and tell other families, like, you're not forgotten. There's still fun stuff out there for you. There's other families who want to like partner with you, want to give you that fun stuff so that you can make those memories with your kids, and your kids grow up remembering, hey, we still did stuff as a family. Like, life didn't stop after my brother or sister's diagnosis. Like, we still got to do those fun things together. So that was kind of just the whole thing, is just this slow journey of like talking about random ideas and meeting families and just seeing that there was a need there.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It really, really is. It's totally needed. Totally needed. We were just talking, I want to start doing stuff with Faith now. I mean, when she was younger, we did a lot, but then as she got older, then it was hard. And, there's times where places and things that people do that you kind of don't want to do because you don't want to, you try to adapt the best way that you can.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to put your child in that situation to feel bad about the things that they can't do. And then, so it's like that, you walk that like fine line there,
Yeah.
Which is very hard. And you just kind of have to make do, but yeah, it's tough. And I too love that you included, both foster and adoptive and special needs all together, because a lot of people don't know, but foster, they think, oh, foster families, they get a stipend and they get this. It ain't a lot.
Right.
Not a lot. Like, and they're putting so much into these kids, and because you take them on as your own, and you're taking them to appointments, picking them up from school,
right,
you would do. So I always, that's like one of my pet peeves when people say, oh, they get a stipend. Well, it really doesn't cover a whole lot.
Right.
So, and we
Yeah.
hear from foster families are like, yeah, come live in the trenches with us,
Yeah, we have one of our board members is doing foster care right now, and she tells me some of the stuff. I mean, their life is on hold between she needs to, at the drop of a hat, be able to have their foster daughter ready for birth parent visits, or a birth parent visit ends early. It's a whole world, and it may not be as much of a financial thing as maybe an adoption is, but it's still, there's a lot that comes with it. And we've seen that with multiple friends that have done foster care. So yeah, I know that's much needed for those families too.
Absolutely. So what was your experience trying to get the nonprofit off the ground in the middle of a pandemic?
So I think that we were pretty fortunate actually in the middle of a pandemic to do that. It crossed my mind, but it was kind of like we had talked about it for so long. We were like, we're going to do it now or we're never going to do it. So I think that it may have almost worked in our favor a little bit, because I think people were on social media more, and they were, my board members, we all meet over Zoom. That was like a no-brainer because two of them live in Michigan and one's on the East Coast. So in a way it kind of worked to our favor, but we didn't have a lot of struggles necessarily from it, other than we were not able to do some of the in-person things. Because the last year and a half or so, that since we've been founded, 2 years, I guess, has been so much logistical stuff. Kind of been helpful because, like, I personally have had more time because I haven't been running around to so many appointments. Like during the pandemic, I didn't have all the appointments that I normally had, so it kind of worked in my favor a little bit, and didn't present a huge challenge to us, other than like, we couldn't have done like a traditional 5K or like an in-person auction or something, like many nonprofits would be doing.
So I love the meaning behind the name Cherry Blossom. Can you share a little bit with the listeners on why you chose that?
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit of like, I feel like it's a little bit of like a geeky reason, kind of, I don't know, like my own personal reason. So I love going to the Cherry Blossom Festival in DC. Like DC just kind of holds a little bit of a special place in our family's life, just because on our first trip to go to AI for appointments, the fun thing that we did was to go down to DC, and it happened to be in the summer. It wasn't during Cherry Blossom Festival or anything, but it was in the summer, and it was like a great part of the trip. Like it just, I don't know, our kids enjoyed it. They loved the Washington Mall, and we just loved so much about the city. And I feel like it was accessible for us. There were free museums. So we just kind of have this special place for DC. And then when we moved, I was always like, I just want to get to the Cherry Blossom Festival. I just want to go down and see it. And so my daughter and I one day were like, okay, we're just going to go. And I don't ever really do that. Like, we go as a family, or we don't generally go, but I went with my oldest daughter, and we had just such a fun day, and it was such like a nice memory for me. And I feel like that's what I would like to have for families, is that, you know what, maybe you don't get to do this, but we're going to give it to you. We're going to give you back that vacation, the thing that maybe you thought, oh, we're never going to get to do that again, or we don't do that. Like, we don't vacation, we can't afford it. So it just sort of like became kind of a symbol for me. And then, like, it's a little bit geeky, but I'm like, you know what? The cherry blossoms are like, they were a gift to the United States, and they're a sign of spring, and they're a sign of new things, like that's a little bit more than most people want to think about it. But I just feel like all that wrapped together of like, it's just a sign of something new and fun and exciting, and maybe getting something back that you thought, oh, we're never going to be able to do that again, or we're just not going to have that experience. So yeah, that's kind of the reason for it.
I like it. What advice would you have to others out there when it comes to starting a nonprofit? Because I'm sure there's a lot involved in it.
I feel like I'm not in a place to really be giving advice yet, because I don't know. I still feel like I'm figuring so much of it out as I go. I did hear some good advice from someone else the other day that I feel like is probably the best advice I've heard. But it's not my original advice. But that would be just, don't be afraid of being rejected when you're going to start anything, whether it's a business, a nonprofit, or anything, because it's just going to happen. And you kind of have to not take it personally. I mean, I've asked people to be on our board and had them say no. And I've asked people that I thought it was a no-brainer, like definitely they'll be on the board. And they said no. And you kind of just have to go, okay, I can't take it personally. And then just saying, you know what, I have my personal group of people that I know values what I'm doing. And maybe this person didn't, or maybe this person said no when I thought they'd say yes, but I'm not going to be offended by it. I'm not going to take it personally. I'm going to say, I know I have people who value what I'm doing and see the reason behind it, and just kind of let it go and not hold on to those things. Cause I feel like you get really lost in trying to start something new. If you're like, oh, well, why didn't that person support it? Or why, easier said than done most days. But I feel like that's been the best advice that I've heard that I'm trying to hold on to for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure you've run across snags where you're like, oh, and then, you just got to keep going.
Yeah.
It's going to happen regardless. So just keep going. Go with it. Yeah. I saw on your website that folks are currently donating allotted weeks at their vacation homes. So while you fundraise to purchase a designated vacation home on the Eastern Shore. So where are your locations of the homes that are currently donated to you? Like,
so we really have the two parts of our nonprofit. The one part is we're fundraising to buy a house that will be owned by Cherry Blossom Vacations. And the goal of that house is to use it for the majority of the year for families to come and stay at no cost. And then beyond that, with that house, we would like to make sure that it has some of the things that families need. Like for my family, we need to find a wheelchair accessible vacation rental when we go places, which is hard and more expensive than other places. But I know other families have said, you know what, my child needs a safety bed when I go places. Otherwise, she's sleeping in between the parents, or the parents are sleeping on the floor, which also is not ideal for a vacation. So stuff like that. We have friends that need to take a blender when they go everywhere. We just actually traveled with someone and they were there, and her husband was like, yeah, she brought the blender. And I'm like, she's like, I had to. And they went through that. And it's like, it's something that they always have to pack and they have to bring because their daughter needs it for her food needs, because some kids have that. So that's the goal with that house, is that it's used for the whole year. Families come and stay at no cost. And then it has those extra things. So families don't have to bring those things or worry about like, okay, how am I going to get my son's wheelchair into the house? How many steps are there? Or what if there's no blender there, even though they say they have all the kitchen appliances? So that's that side of it. The other side is, what you were just describing. It's our Getaways program. And so that is where we're asking homeowners, vacation homeowners, to donate time at their vacation home to be used by a family who applies for a stay with us. So we currently have houses in Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, 2 houses in Kentucky, California, and Michigan that we're hoping all the homeowners have donated time to us. We're in the kind of the final stages of getting our insurance stuff together and hoping to launch that part of it and start taking applications this fall. And would ideally love to have more, because we know most vacation owners don't use their house for the entire year.
Yeah.
And we know that there's a lot of families out there who, yes, maybe they need to travel in the summer and that's a time when other people are using it. But there's a lot of families too who are homeschool families, or for whatever reason are able to take their kids out of school and travel in October or something like that, when a vacation house may very well be sitting empty. And so, we're definitely looking to partner with more, because the more houses and time that we have, the more families we can get on vacation.
Now, what if it's a timeshare? So can they donate their week of from their timeshare?
We have had someone else ask about that, and I know a little bit about timeshares because my parents own one, but we haven't gone down that route yet. Just because of the logistics of it, we haven't kind of gotten into that part of it. So I won't say no, but we haven't figured out the logistics side of it. So we're not currently pursuing that specifically at the moment.
Because I know just from personal experience, we owned a timeshare for many years, and there was times where, regardless, we still had to pay the fee, and we couldn't
Right.
get it out, so it sat there empty.
Right.
So I mean that I would have rather given it away, and there were some years when I did. I'm like, please, I'm like, go stay there. I'm like, because I don't want it to be empty. We're paying for it regardless, you know.
Right.
And I was able to switch even though I didn't have a handicapped week or room. They actually let me switch a lot. And then I was able to go down to the downstairs one. I mean, they had elevators anyway, but it was nice,
Right.
handicap accessible.
Yeah.
So yeah, those would be great if you guys could get in on them, because I'm sure you'd have a lot.
Yeah. And we would love to branch into that. It's just a little bit more logistics of there's just more involved with it not being just us and the owner. Because they would be, most of them are condos, they'd be wheelchair accessible, and would have all the stuff, so that's definitely a hope for the future that we can kind of branch into that.
So how does one actually apply for the vacation? And are there any requirements or financial requirements or anything other than being, having to be an adoptive or a foster or have a child with a special need?
So we're also finalizing our application and hoping that'll come out. We're hoping in September, just kind of depending on how long it takes us to finalize with the vacation homeowners this summer. Summer is a tricky time. Everybody wants to be on vacation and not do any of the, like the emails and stuff like that. So our goal is September, to have that and to start being able to put the application out there for families. So it's going to be kind of a multi-step process where it's a quick application to say, hey, I'm interested in this. This is a little bit about my family. Yes, we're either an adoptive, a foster, or a special needs family. And then we go through a process with our team of looking at who would be the best fit for the houses that we have to start with, and then contact those families and do a little bit more of a conversation with them. At this point, we're thinking probably just like a phone conversation with them or potentially a quick Zoom call, just to kind of make sure that we understand what their family's looking for and they understand the requirements on our end of this is where the vacation house is. This is when you need to commit to getting to it. So families will have to do a refundable deposit to secure their time. That basically is just covering any large damages to the house, but then that will be refunded to them. So the plan is they apply, we match them with the best space for them and the best time for them, and then work out the travel details, make sure they get there, make sure they have a great experience, and then refund the deposit. We take care of the cleaning stuff for the homeowners. We take, so that they don't need to really pay anything
other than
at the end is our goal.
Their travel, their food, and
right. So yes, yes, families do need to get there. That's why we're trying to find houses around the country in addition to the house that we're hoping to buy in Maryland, is that we want to be able to reach a lot of families. And we know some families can't fly. Flying is expensive, or there's other reasons not to fly. And so we're trying to find just a variety of houses, and so that we can reach a lot of families and they can be able to drive there within like a reasonable drive.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's I feel like it has such potential, and it just could be such an awesome thing for families. So I'm really excited. I mean, fundraising has gone so much better than I've expected so far. Our goal is 500,000 to be able to purchase our house, and we're at about 102,000. Not quite a year into it. So that's really exciting for us. And we're just kind of at a point where we just need to keep pushing on and just spreading the word and getting more people to say, hey, yeah, I have a vacation house, or hey, yeah, I know maybe a business who would love to support that. So yeah.
That is awesome. So is there anything else that we missed or that you want to share about the business?
I don't think so. I can say for families that are interested, that hear about this and want to potentially apply this fall, we pretty much send everyone either to our website, which is cherryblossomvacations.org. You can sign up for our email by emailing us at info at cherryblossomvacations.org, or we are on social media. Pretty much only Facebook because I'm not great at Instagram. And I have other people who are volunteering with me, but they also are not great at Instagram. So if anyone's if anyone's interested in volunteering to help us with social media, that's also something we're looking for. But yeah, I think really we would love to have families start getting in touch with us and say, hey, I'm interested. We pretty much either add them to our email list or we have them follow us on social media so that when we're ready for applications to start being taken, they'll know about that and they'll be able to do it. And then anyone, of course,
you're going to have like a long waiting list for people.
We do. We actually have had I feel bad because we've had families, even as much as like last summer when we were just getting off the ground and contacting us, and it's like, okay, like we have, a little ways to go. So part of me is just like, I'm just like, I just want to get a house, so we can start getting families on vacation. But that's how these things go. You don't just hop into a vacation house overnight, unfortunately.
But it's great because it's, that word of mouth and getting everything out, and, and then they'll be helping with help you fundraise and get the word out about that. You know what I mean? It works. Yep. It'll circle back around.
Yep.
So it's definitely threefold. That's awesome. That is awesome. So I had emailed you a flyer. What's your word? And I ask all of my guests, what's a meaningful word? And I wanted to see if you would be willing to share what word you chose and why.
Yeah. So I had the word hope come to mind. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing that we want to give back to families as an organization. And even like myself, I've seen so many families that I feel like have gone through adoption or have a special needs child. And it's just like you get to a point where you're like, oh, I'm so tired and I just feel alone, and I feel like we've been there, we've been in those places and it's hard. And I feel like the thing that has gotten us through has been other families coming around us. And so I feel like we've had that, and that's what we want to give back. We want to give hope to families. I was thinking about, our adoption journey. And we were so hopeful. And that's how it is with a baby too. Like when our girls were born, like you're so hopeful, like this new life is coming into your family and you're so hopeful. And then maybe something happens, you have a special needs diagnosis or something that kind of puts you a little bit off track. But they're still good coming, And so that's, I think, what we want to give back, just my personal family, because my husband's so great. Like he helps me. We just, for 4th of July, I saw that there was a parade nearby us in Delaware. And I was like, oh, there's a parade coming up. And my oldest daughter was like, we should walk in it for cherry blossom and hand stuff out. My kids are like so great. Like they are on board with us. And so it's just been really fun for me to see that and see that they're like, hey, we want to help families. We want to give them hope back, that there's still fun to be had. And there's still like memories to be made, and they're still good to have, even when you go through some of those kind of rough spots that you maybe didn't expect.
Yeah. And you'll connect, even by doing that, you'll connect other families with one another too. I had interviewed Janice Watson, and she has a nonprofit that she started out in Utah called A Buddy Just Like Me. And it's amazing because you sign on and you can either there's 3 parts. Basically, you would have a buddy. So say if your son wanted to have a buddy just like him, you would complete, information about you. They pair you with a buddy. It connects caregivers together. It also connects. So if your son wanted a mentor, so if there was someone that's older than him that kind of was going through it, can mentor him and be a buddy. But the crazy thing is, she said when she started it, her son has cerebral palsy, and it turned out that he met a buddy through it. I think she said either 3 miles or 5 miles. Like it's like 5 miles away, and they missed 3 years where they could have been hanging out. But
oh my gosh,
you know what I mean? And also too, that at the hospitals and everything, they really can't connect the families because, of HIPAA. So she's actually starting to partner with the hospitals and stuff like that to say, oh, here, and give them the flyer, have things posted, connect with them, they go there, and then they can get those connections,
Yeah.
And it's so true to where you say about that, because, you go through those different stages, and I've been through a lot of them now because Faith's going to be 19 soon. And I was actually just watching one of our church services online. We didn't go, but they were talking about how sometimes, like, even like when you go to church, you see each other every Sunday, and it's kind of like superficial in a way because it's small talk, but we need to start gathering outside of just that Sunday and really fellowshipping and connecting with one another. But I almost, like, I felt like it like spoke to me too, because it's I feel like, I have a lot of acquaintances and people that I talk to and stuff, but sometimes it's really hard to connect with them because you don't live the life that they live. And if you don't have a lot of other friends or people that you're around that are going through like what you're going through, they either don't understand, or I don't have anything to talk about. And if I'm talking about it, it's about her stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
How much do you want to keep hearing about all of that,
Right.
Or, you have them there that you can talk to, but it's nice to have somebody to talk to that's actually going through it.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's another goal of ours too, is we would love to get a house in Maryland, the one that we buy, that's big enough on some property that we could have family days. And that, maybe twice a year, we have families who are able to drive for the day, come and hang out together, and just be able to do that, that we would love to be able to like meet families. Cause like you said, you sometimes just need people who get it. Mm-hmm. And just to be able to, and your kids, like our kids need that. Like we need that as parents, our kids as siblings need it. Like, so I totally, I get that too.
It's huge, 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 huge. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out and being on the show. I wish you nothing but luck. I can't wait to meet you and get together, since we're not far from one another.
Yeah, for sure.
Meet the kids. And I will put everything in the show notes on how to find you, and hopefully things will just blast off for you. And I can't wait. And then once everything starts, like, I would love to have you back and maybe have some of the people that go and actually have these experiences and go to the homes, have them back as a guest as well.
We would love that.
About it and help with fundraising and stuff. I think that would be amazing, because you're really doing, what you're doing is awesome for all these families.
Yeah, thank you. I know that I would be so excited to like bring families on and be able to let them share and continue to get the word out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what it's all about. All right. Well, thank you. And until next time, everybody, peace out. Bye. Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show to the masses. If you would like to support the Guilbault Girls on another level, click on the link in the show notes to make a donation in any amount. Add your address and you'll receive a hand-stamped token with the word village on it in appreciation. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls. Till next time.